Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to set up a Voicemeeter in 2026. So I'm actually going to show you from scratch, and I'll do a full Voicemeeter beginner's tutorial. And also later I'll show you how to set up Voicemeeter for Discord and OBS. But first guys, if you want, you can go down on this video in the comment section and click on the first comment that I pinned. This will bring you to my Fiverr, and here you can get a YouTube logo and banner or a modern minimalist YouTube logo and banner for your YouTube channel. But now back to the video. Now in the past I actually did a video on how to download and install Voicemeeter. So if you don't have it yet, you can go ahead and check that video out right up here in the right corner, because I'm also going to be downloading something that we're going to use here in Voicemeeter, which is going to be the virtual cable, and that's also part of that video. So if you feel like you don't have everything yet, go check out that video and out. Now, so as you can see, I have Voicemeter right here. I will minimize this because I first quickly want to mention the input and the output in the windows, which is going to be very important. So to do that, you actually want to right click on the volume icon here. You're going to do sound settings. Here you actually want to scroll down, just scroll down until you see more sound settings. And so here, now it is going to be very important what you select here, because you will not hear this video anymore. You will not hear any audio anymore, depending on what you select. So as you can see, I actually just have mine set to my speakers as a default. You can actually do that right here. You do set as default, but you can of course also do one of these voice meters right here. Now I have more than you probably, because I have other voice meters as well. So I actually have more options here, but don't worry, it's the same idea. Now what's important to keep in mind is that this will correspond to whatever you're going to select here. So for example, you're going to do the Voicemeeter input. It's going to be this one right here. And then the cable input is of course going to be, if you're going to use that, which is something I talk about in that video, you're going to select that. Same for the recording here. If I go down, this is going to be the input. Once again, on default, I just keep my microphone here. As you can see, it's actually active. It has a signal here. But you can, for example, do the out A1 here. This is going to be this first one. Or once again, the cable output, if that's something you're going to use. And I'll get into that, of course, later on. And so once again, if you want to select something as default, you just do this, set default, and then apply. Whatever you're going to select as a playback, so output, or recording input, make sure that you also right click on it, do properties, go to advanced, and here you want to make sure to select either 2-channel 24-bit 48,000 Hz studio quality or 2-channel 16-bit 48,000 Hz DVD quality. One of those two will work just fine, as long as it's one of these two, and then you select that and make sure you click apply and OK. Now do that for this one, but also if you go back to playback, you want to do the same right here, of course, as well in playback. And so lastly, if we go to communications tab, it says it right here, whenever you come, for example, have an incoming call or another voice like an alarm on your PC, automatically all of the other volumes of whatever you're doing will go down. Now if you want to have more control over that, you can do nothing. So that actually will mean that Windows will never affect your volume or anything you do. So that's just a little detail here, but if you want that, make sure you click do nothing if you want to have full control of incoming sounds, things like that. And I'll click apply and OK if you're done. But of course, we're going to go to Voicemeeter itself right now. So this is going to be the layout of Voicemeeter. It might look a little bit complicated at first, maybe, if you're new to it, but don't worry, I'll explain it to you. To start off, what's actually nice is if I go on anything with my mouse, as you can see up there, it will be written with a couple of words explaining what it is and what it does. So that's always nice. If you feel a bit lost, to just look at the explanation that are above there. So it's a nice little detail. That wasn't the case a couple of years ago in Voicemeeter, so it's more of a, let's say, recent update, which is nice. And then here to first start off, now I actually renamed this to microphone, but basically this is stereo input 1, and this of course is then stereo input 2. So those are actually be your hardware inputs, so your physical inputs, like for example a microphone. And here in Voicemeeter we have one virtual input, meaning like any sounds that come from like games, YouTube, Spotify, and later on of course, as well as I'm going to show you OBS and Discord. So that will be right here mainly. Then A here is going to be your main output. You can really link this to whatever you want here. If you're going to select the A, it's going to be linked directly to this one. Then we have the virtual out B. That is advised to be the output for your virtual input. So this is the virtual input going into the virtual output. And once again, as you can see, if you select or deselect B here, it will no longer be linked to this one here. This is going to be the output for the physical and virtual inputs right here. Now, if for some reason you still had some lingering settings on your Voicemeeter that you actually want to reset, you can go ahead to menu. You actually want to go down here. If you want to do that, you can do reset settings to ask you this message and you just click yes. Now, of course, I didn't have any settings to begin with, but otherwise just reset everything here. Now, if you go back up here to menu, you actually also had the option to do system tray. Now, if you select that, it will actually go down here to this little arrow where the other system tray applications are going to be running in the background basically. And then in menu, once again, just underneath it, run Windows Startup. Now, I might guess what that is. That just means that Voicemeeter basically will automatically start up whenever Windows is starting up. So it will just launch on itself. So you just have to click on it to enable it. But of course, if that's not something you want, just can leave it like this. Unchecked, which basically means it's disabled. Now going down to system settings, this is quite a little important window. First of all, you do want to make sure that the sample rate is 48,000 Hz. Now you can generally, if you click on it here, have the option between 44,100 Hz or 48,000 Hz. There's not a big world of difference between the two, but it's generally advised to just go for 48,000 Hz. 32,000 Hz is not going to be enough, and 88,200 is going to be too much for nothing. So just go ahead with 48,000, it's going to be just fine. Now, in case you have a problem with latency, which basically means there's some kind of delay. So if you're, for example, speaking a word and you hear it a couple of milliseconds to a second later, that means you have some kind of delay and you call it latency because sound comes out a bit later. You want to change that right here. Now do a look at what corresponds with what. So for example, if you have as an input, which I'm going to show you, you select MME, you're going to do this one. And if you're going to select WDM, you're going to select this. So if you click on this, it will give you this message, don't worry about it, just click OK. Basically saying that it doesn't need a change, but that you can change it if you want to. Now here, generally speaking, when you have latency, it means it's a bit too high. So in this case, you would want to bring it down. Depends to where. You can check for yourself, of course, how low you want this to be. Now sometimes it can be a bit too low, and then you actually have to bring it up a bit again. So do make sure you actually check it for yourself. Okay, then we can close this window. Here on the right side, I like to put it on stereo repeat. Just put them both on stereo repeat. This of course enables more of a stereo quality, which is of course always something you want. So actually putting these two right here to stereo repeat. Okay, so now I actually want to go to stereo input 1, so the first hardware input, which is actually going to be the one where I'm going to link my microphone to. Up here to begin with, you can actually right click on this and rename it. Now as you can see, I renamed it microphone. You can just click enter and just renames it. It's just a bit easier. Of course, you can do that with the other ones as well. Make sure you click here. This window will show. And here I want to say you generally want to go for a WDM. At times it might be MME. You have to test it for yourself. If you're running into any problems, you could try to alternate between the two, but I would say that the input in general is going to be a WDM. And of course, you want to select the microphone in question you're using. So I have a microphone Blue Yeti. And so as you can hear, I currently have no effects on my voice whatsoever. My voice actually goes through Voicemeeter. Zero effects on it, so it just sounds like it comes raw out of the box right now. The signal is here as well. Now it is connected to A and B, which are of course the two outputs. So then I'm actually going to do a output. Now I actually set it to the cable input here, which you basically want to go to A1. And in this case, you rather want to go for MME. In most cases, it's going to be MME. But once again, if you feel like you're really running into any problems, you can go for a WDM here. But otherwise, it is going to be MME. And then here you can go for the cable input, once again, which is something I did. But you can also, for example, go ahead and do your speakers or headphones. So it basically means that you're going to hear it through your speakers or your headphones that you're wearing. And you're basically going to hear yourself speak. If that might be something you don't want, you want to make sure you unselect A. A is going to be the sound that you will hear in Voicemeeter. So you, yourself, A is going to be the sounds that you hear. And B is going to be what other people will hear. So that's a very important distinguish that you have to make here. And something we will keep in mind for later. If, by the way, we go back to the outputs here, you want to connect a second pair of headphones, speakers, anything else. Basically a second source where you want to hear the audio from. If for example you are with a friend and you want to listen with two headsets, you can actually of course go ahead and do the A1 and select whatever you want. So let's say just say speakers here. But what you can do then, you can actually also go to A2. And if for example, imagine there would have been a second speakers or headphones here, another source of audio where you can listen audio through, you can select that one. And all you need is to link one to this one and the other one to this one. So that's also nice to keep in mind. But of course, now what we're going to do, it's going to be very important, it's actually make my voice a bit better here. And to actually do that, we're going to start here, of course, on track 1, where I connected my microphone to. And here, basically to distinguish it, it's going to be more of the lows here. You might hear that my voice is changing in the lows. Now, the more you put it over here, the lower it will get, so it doesn't really sound that nice over there. So I've had it like around here in the past, or maybe around here as well, to add a bit more high end in there. Now, if you go here, it quickly gets too thin. The sound will get quite thin, not a lot of low end, doesn't really sound nice. And up here, you have even somewhat of a saturated echo sound, if that's something you want for some reason. But as I said in the past, I've kept the bound here if I wanted some bass in my voice, some low end. Otherwise, I just put it maybe around here, you know, a bit between the low ends and the high ends. So that's really up to you to play around with that. It's going to be one of two ways to actually make your voice better within Voicemeeter. So if you actually double click this, by the way, it resets it to what it used to be. If you right click here, actually within this box, you will see you can also do panning. Now I'll go to your left ear, and right now I'll actually go to your right ear, so that is going to be panning. You can also do that in somewhat of a 3D graph, so if it's going to be more towards the right or towards the left, but then in more of a 3D sound. Once again, double click in the middle to actually reset it. So do keep in mind that you also have that option. You just need to right click here, and if I do it again, you will be back to the original voice effects. Next to here we have Audibility. Now what this actually does is like an integrated compressor and a gate that you can actually play around with, meaning that it can actually compress the sound but also put like a sound gate on it, so there's actually some background noise that will be removed, so boost your voice a little bit. Though I don't really advise you to use this one. It's not the best option, to be honest, in terms of a compressor or a noise gate. If you use it, don't put it up too high. You might play around with it a little bit, but really don't put this one too high if you're gonna use it. Down here in dB, of course, we have the volume. Putting this up is going to make it a bit louder. I'm not going to do too much here, of course. But you can imagine that the more you get up here, the more in the red, the louder it's going to get. And it might actually clip. Now, when you're clipping, it means that you actually have, well, too loud of a volume, basically. So it's just going to be too loud and it will clip. You're probably going to hear my voice less and less. It's going to be quite quiet. As you can hear. So of course, and then double click is to reset it. Now mono here, you're gonna use this, especially you're gonna click this if you only have your microphone in one ear. Make sure you select mono. If you already hear it in both ears, what this is gonna do if you click on it is just basically gonna make it louder. It's gonna make the microphone, the input, the gain a bit louder. So for the rest it's not really useful. Make sure that this is off and only really use it if you hear yourself in one ear. The S is actually for solo. This is if you want to solo out this whole track here, basically ignoring the other ones here. Click that, just make sure that it's selected like this. It will look like this, and as you can see it will also start flickering here, meaning that they will automatically be muted, the other channels. And down here the M is going to be for mute. Now of course I think you know what mute will be. It's when you actually cut off the audio. So everything here will still exist, all of these settings, but it will basically just mute it and you will not hear it anymore. So if I would click on mute right now, you will stop hearing my voice. This is of course also something you can do if you're gonna make somebody listen to a song, a music, but you want to actually mute your own voice because the other person only needs to hear the audio. And of course also the other way around if you want to mute the audio but still hear your own voice in the microphone. Now that I've explained the whole tab here, by the way it's the same for this one, it's the exact same thing, you can actually click on the word Intellipan. Right click on it, and so here we can reset everything within this audio track once again, copy something, paste it, and even save everything. So we can save the entire track, so the entire microphone including the effects. If we did A or B, the volume, mute, solo, all of it can also be saved and actually go as a file to your computer. And then if you actually reset your settings and you want to load that again, you click on load. So that's a little detail. You have to really find it because you actually have to right click on the word Intellipan here, which not everybody thinks about to do. Okay, so I'm actually back to my normal voice that I usually record in. Now, if you're gonna look, for example, at stereo input 2, there's something else you can put here, so another physical input, but also something that I asked you to download in that video. If I click on here, once again, probably gonna make sure there's a WDM or alternate between M and me. You can do the cable output in this case. Now, the cable output, I'm just gonna turn this off right here, but you basically see a signal already, which is the input, as confusing as it sounds. But mainly where we're gonna use the cable output for is gonna be in case you want people to hear your audio, what you're hearing. So what you're currently hearing, and you want to show that to other people, make them listen to it through once again something like Discord. And so once again, for example, in that case, make sure that in Discord it is also selected to the cable right here as an output. But that was just to quickly explain and to show you that you can of course use another physical input here like a microphone or use the cable output. Okay, so now I will actually remove my microphone here. It's gonna make it a bit easier and do, for example, remove selection. You can see it will remove everything that was here. And so I'm gonna focus on the virtual input this time. Now to do that, I actually want to make sure that in Windows itself, my output is also the virtual input. So if I go down here to the little sound icon, I click on it. I want to make sure to go to the actual sound output of Windows. It is currently still my speakers, so my Windows output is my speakers, basically going into my headphones. But because I want to hear the virtual input, I will go down here and search for it. Once again, you probably have less outputs than I do. It's because I had multiple Voicemeters, so don't be confused, don't worry. All you have to do is search for the Voicemeeter input, VB audio, Voicemeter, VAIO. So that will mean that this one will now be immediately routed, so connected to this one. This virtual input is this one right here. And so now I'll actually put this here to my speakers in the output so that I can actually also hear what I'm doing in terms of the audio. So now I'll actually go ahead and search for an example here in terms of audio. Okay, so I'm going to use this piece of audio here. It will be from the channel Eternal Depth. I'm going to listen to a little piece of it. That's what it's going to sound like. Now, of course, I'm going to use Voicemeeter to change that sound. Now, as we saw earlier, we actually put the Windows output to virtual input. So now when I'm launching the sound here, you will see that first of all, the signal is here. A and B, of course, because I've selected both of these. Now, what I can do then is, of course, for example, start with the volume. It's going to make it a bit louder. Quieter, of course. But also, if I do the bass here, it's going to add some bass. I'm going to exaggerate this a bit so that you can hear what I mean. As you can see, that adds a lot of bass there. Same, you can do the mids. And you can do the highs as well. Focusing more on some high frequencies here. So you can make a nice little balance between the three of them. Find something you like and you can add a little bit. It's a pretty basic equalizer, EQ version that will help you make the sound a bit better, which can always be nice. Then of course you can double click it to reset all of them. So that is actually what the virtual input will do. So now I actually want to talk about another feature in Voicemeeter that is actually quite important. Probably the most important part of changing your voice in Voicemeeter, which is going to be EQ. No, it's actually going to be an advanced EQ. If I go to menu here, I'm going to go down to Run Other Voicemeeter Tools and select the Run 15 Bands Graphic EQ. And as you can see right here, this window will appear, this small window. In the first instance, you of course always want to make sure it is actually linked. To here you can change between bus A and bus B, but it should be bus A. You can also click bypass if you don't hear yourself in the first instance, but But of course, most important part is going to be that here, of course, your microphone is connected like it is right now for me. And then here you can do bus A and bypass. Click this in case. You can also, by the way, change the volume here in dB. You can also play with the dB here if you want it to be louder or quieter. Also actually do a basic explanation of EQ here. But I'm going to focus more, of course, on the voice, which is obviously what we're going to go for here. You want to make sure that there's pretty much nothing here underneath 100. So here you can see the numbers, by the way. And you want to make sure that right here, nothing is selected, so it's all set to 0. And sometimes you even want to put this all the way down here, but I won't think it's really necessary in this case. But just know that this is going to be the low end, but like the bad low end. It's going to be like a rumbling bad low end, especially for vocals. So once again, you really want to start here around 100 Hertz. So this is going to be in Hertz. Why you want to start boosting your voice. Boosting is going to be like this. Now, if I do this, you should be able to hear the difference. So if I'll put this way up, you should hear that there's going to be a lot of bass in my voice. And if I'm going to do it like this, so if I'm cutting, so I'm going to put this underneath here in the negative, you hear that my voice is probably pretty thin right now. No low end pretty much whatsoever. So that's something to keep in mind. This is called boosting when you put it up, and if you're going to put it into the negative, it's going to be cutting. In my case, 100, still not really fan of that one. I prefer around 120 to 40, but we don't have that here. So I'm just going to do a slight boost here. Nothing too crazy of this one. What I'm mainly going to do is do the other good, let's say, low end here. It's going to be 160. I'll put this up a bit more. By the way, you have the values approximately here in dB. So this is going to be 6 and 12. No, it's going to be way too much. You're never going to really use that right here. You want to stay around here, which is going to be approximately 3 dB. I'm not going to do it perfect here. What I'm going to do, it's not going to be perfect. I'm just going to make sure that there's a little bit of a difference here, but nothing too crazy. So let's just say it like this. Now around 250 to 400, you don't really want to touch this. It's going to be a bit of like muddiness. So it's going to sound pretty muddy if I do this. Probably know what I'm talking about. I put it up or down. It's not going to do anything too positive here. I'm going to just reset this to 0, right click, click 0. Same for around 400 to what will be 600 afterwards. It's not really useful because it's going to be like boxed a bit too much in this case. Once again, for vocals, that's definitely not what we want. It's only really from like 800, but once again, we don't have that here. So we're going to say more like 1K, so 1000 Hertz, that we're actually going to start boosting or cutting again. And I would say by general rule, I like to cut a little bit more here than boosting in the mids. We call this the mids, rather than really boosting it. So I'm going to do nothing too crazy, maybe like a slight cut. If you go down here, it will actually become pretty muffled. So really don't cut this too much either. I think around here is actually pretty good. Now going up to more of the high end, 2.5 here. I'm not going to do a lot, barely going to touch this. More importantly, it's going to be the 4K and the 6K. So the 4K, I'm going to do quite of a boost here, but not too much either. Maybe around here, and then we can actually put the 6K around here, slightly so. Now, if you're going to put these two down, it's going to be, of course, once again, a bit more low end and pretty muffled. And up here, it's going to be too high. Especially the 6K, you'll get a lot of sibilance, so a lot of sounds, and that's kind of something you want to avoid. I'm going to go to 10K, and everything above is going to be more openness, more air. 16K is also quite high. I will go to like 10K and make it a bit more open, but not too much actually. Just make sure that it's a bit clearer, everything. And there you go. I won't do anything more than this. So it's not perfect what I did here. It's an example of EQ. And by general rule, it really goes, this right here is going to be the low end. This is going to be some frequencies you generally don't really want to use. It's going to be the mids right here. Up to like 2000, 2500. Above is going to be the highs. So anything you want to boost or cut, that's going to be the high frequencies. Now, if you're done here, make sure you don't close this. You actually want to minimalize this. So they click to minimalize. Otherwise, it will remove the effects while still in Voicemeeter. So that's very important. Make sure you keep it open. Once again, it's still here. I just minimalized it. So if you want to use Voicemeeter, you can of course also minimalize Voicemeter. You can also do, as we saw earlier in the settings, the system tray, and it will also go right here. But just know that the most important part is that they're still running in the background, including the EQ, of course. And so now I actually show you how to add Voicemeeter in OBS. So if I have OBS open right here, I do first want to go to the settings, go to output, and we're just going to go to the audio here. So this is the first like smaller audio tab, let's say, but it's also important, no matter how much tracks you use, make sure that whatever track you use is going to be on audio bitrate of 320. 160 works as well, but 320 is just the best quality here if that's something you want. But then actually going to the actual audio tab, up here, make sure the sample rate is 48,000 kilohertz. Channels, always make sure that they're on stereo. And here as an input, now I of course have it set to my microphone right now, so my Blue Yeti, and my speakers is just going to be my headphones here that I'm wearing. But of course, if you want to do that to Voicemeeter, and we go to the input, in case of recording, because you're only going to record your own voice, you're not going to make your voice listen to other people, it's just going to be for yourself. You want to go ahead and do, most likely in this case, the Voicemeeter Out A1, which will be directly connected to this one right here. So if you use once again this one that I used earlier, this is going to be the Voicemeeter Out A1 VB Audio Voicemeeter VIO. You could go for the B1, of course, that's also an option you have, but you should in this case probably just go more for the Out A one. In terms of the output, so this one here, desktop audio, this is going to be output. You could, as we saw earlier, do the Voicemeeter input here. That is in case you're going to use this one. So like you saw with, like, for example, music from YouTube, Spotify. So for that, you select Voicemeeter input, or otherwise you can also set it to the cable input. And then, for example, you're going to link it right here. Just make sure that you link the cable output. Then as an output here, you select the cable input, and you will once again be able to make the changes that you can do within here. So then when you have made your selections, when you've selected whatever you wanted, make sure that you click apply and then you click OK. Okay, and so now I actually show you how to set a Voicemeeter for Discord. So when I'm actually here in Discord, I want to go down to the user setting. I go to voice and video. Now this is going to be the input, and this is going to be the output. Here you have the volumes. Now as an input, you really, in most cases, because of course you want other people to hear your audio. As we said earlier, that would be B. So in this case, B1. So in most cases, if you use Voicemeeter as an input on Discord, go for Voicemeeter out B1. Because A is if you want to hear it for yourself. B is if other people hear it. Any other really thing you could do is, for example, do the cable output if you're using that. That's really going to be the other one, or if you want to try and play around with any other options. Then for the output, select once again Voicemeeter input if you want to connect directly to the virtual input, or of course in this case you can also do the cable input, something that you have to connect to this one right here, or this one, that's up to you. That would be in case if you do the cable input. And of course any other, once again, Voicemeeter outputs here that you would want to try, for example, you can test around. Now, of course, lastly, what's also very important is to actually save your settings. So whatever you did within Voicemeeter. To do that, we want to go to menu. I'm just going to click on save settings. Now, whatever you do, you can rename it here. It will be a .xml file. So you can just click here. I call it, for example, tutorial like this, and it will be saved right here. Now, this could be, as you can see, you have the path up here as well in case. But you can also do this on your own initiative and go to documents or anywhere else and save it. As long as you can find it back. There's not like a folder that you have to save it in. It's wherever you want to save it. Click save here. I also quickly want to mention earlier that here in the Intellipan, of course, you can also save all. So you're going to save everything within here. You right click on the word Intellipan and you do save all. And lastly, if you want to actually find back old settings that you saved, you can go back to menu and do load settings. Once again, you can browse your computer. Here you have the path file. You can also go to the one that you created. You can just go ahead into that folder and there will be the projects. The one that you saved earlier, you just do this and you click open and it will show all of the settings that you saved previously. And you can also do load settings on startup here, but from my experience they always start on startup, the older settings that I had from the previous time. So this shouldn't be necessary to actually click on, but that's the last thing I wanted to mention. But anyways guys, quite a lengthy video here. I really tried to cover how to set up Voicemeeter from scratch, but also do a full Voicemeeter tutorial also for beginners and try to simplify this as much as possible, because in and of itself it's not a really hard software to use. You just have to know especially what to connect with what, so the routing, the audio, where does it go. But in any case, I of course hope this video helped you out. If you have any questions, you can of course leave them down below. Please leave a like, would be really nice. Subscribe would also be really nice, and hope to see you guys in my next video. Bye.